Boxing Truth here. Wanted to talk about that funny ass interview from Dante's Boxing Nation featuring Errol Spence, where he pretty much Dante wanted Errol Spence to clear the rumors that perhaps Errol Spence's team turned down an immediate shot at Kell Brook. Now, this is according to Eddie Hearn, who stated to the Boxing Voice that he reached out to Heyman's people, who are handling Errol Spence's career, and that he asked them if they wanted to fight right now. And according to Eddie Hearn, they said that's a fight they're not willing to do right now, but down the line when they feel Errol Spence is more seasoned and more ready to take on a fighter of the caliber of Kell Brook. So basically, Eddie Hearn is saying Team Heyman didn't want that work with Kell Brook. But in this interview with Dante featuring Errol Spence, he asked Errol Spence the same question of, is it true? Did Team Heyman really turn down an immediate shot to Kell Brook? And Errol Spence pretty much just said that he doesn't know what the hell Eddie Hearn is talking about. He's full of shit. That they wanted the Jesse Vargas fight. So that they had no reason to fight him, and that why would his team turn down that fight with Kell Brook, considering it would make no sense to fight in an eliminator first in order to earn the mandatory position to a Kell Brook, and in order to enforce that mandatory title shot. However, it does make sense, in my opinion, because really what Team Heyman said, they turned down the fight allegedly, according to Eddie Hearn, for right now, but they said they're willing to make it down the line, and it does make sense for down the line. I mean, Errol Spence has yet to fight a world-class puncher in the division. He's coming off a good win against Algieri, stopping him, knocking him out. But he needs more seasoning, and if I'm a part of Team Heyman handling Errol Spence's career, I want him to have a couple of more fights. A fight or two, or at least earn the mandatory position in order to guarantee a future world title shot down the line. And also, if Spence keeps looking more spectacular, say Kell Brook unifies the titles, if he's truly fighting Jesse Vargas in August, it's only going to make that fight bigger. So it makes sense for that fight to happen down the line when the fight's more intriguing, and Errol Spence is climbing up the rankings, that he still has one more final eliminator to win before he's the mandatory challenger to Kell Brook's IBF strap. But Errol Spence is saying that Kell Brook never wanted to fight him. They wanted the Jesse Vargas fight. But Eddie Hearn will counter that it's not the fighter's decision on what fight's going to happen next, especially in a fighter in the position of Errol Spence, who's still a challenger, a contender on the rise, that ultimately it's up to the fighter's team on who and when they'll fight. And he's pretty much right about that. Perhaps Eddie Hearn did reach out to Team Heyman and said, do you want to fight now? And perhaps Team Heyman didn't even pass the message along down to Errol Spence. Just simply said, we'll do that fight down the line when Errol Spence is a little more ready. So perhaps Errol Spence never got information or word that Eddie Hearn reached out to his people in order to perhaps make the fight right now with Errol Spence. But it doesn't make sense for them to fight right now. Obviously, Eddie Hearn was looking for a bigger fight, more significant fight, and right now he's negotiating for a more significant fight, and perhaps that fight's going to go down with Jesse Vargas. So I'm not taking any sides. It makes sense for them to fight down the line. It also makes sense that perhaps Team Heyman didn't pass the information along, but will hope to make the fight later when Errol Spence is a little more ready. I don't mind waiting for this fight. I think Errol Spence needs to develop a little more. He needs to fight a puncher or a difficult style. And right now, he's supposed to fight Panamarev a top-ranked fighter for the final eliminator. But I'm hearing that that fight perhaps is not going to happen. I heard uh, about maybe a few days ago that Panamara was not going to take the fight, that he was not going to go with the eliminator. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if that fight's going to still materialize, if it's going to happen. But if the Panamara fight doesn't happen, then the IBF is going to continue to go down their rankings on who is the next available highest challenger of the top 15 of the IBF rankings in the welterweight division. I don't have the rankings in front of me. I'm trying to look real quick to see who is next in line, but if it's not Panamarev. Hold up. We'll see who's next in line. It's okay. I got it right here. Panamarev is number 3. Errol Spence is number 2, and they have an Australian fighter named Jeff Horn as number 4. Never heard of him. Lamont Peters is number 5. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. He hasn't fought at all this year. He's been on the shelf like a lot of other Heyman fighters. All these platforms on PBC, and yet these fighters are still on the shelf. Haven't performed at all this year. Fighters like Peter Quillen, Lamont Peterson, Danny Jacobs still looking for an opponent for his first fight this year. So I don't know what's up with Heyman with some of these guys. He's not keeping these guys active. All these PBC platforms, and these guys are on the shelf not fighting. But it is what it is. But I just wanted to comment on this situation that was brewing between Hearn and Heyman's people about that perhaps Hearn pushed for that fight with Spence to see if he was ready, if he wanted that fight now. According to Hearn, Team Heyman turned it down, but wanted down the line when Spence is a little more developed and more ready for that shot. But it's a great fight. I hope it happens down the line. Brook, I don't know how much longer he has to make the welterweight division. He looks very big. Looks like perhaps he's struggling to make the weight. But I would hope that the fight can happen and Brook not pull a Canelo and vacating the title once Spence becomes the number 1 challenger for his strap. But it's a good fight. I love to see it. It's two styles that will mesh well together. Errol Spence is very aggressive. He tries to hurt you. I like his attitude, his fighting style. Comes forward, tries to do damage. Needs to work on his defense. It'll be a great matchup if and when if it were to be made. But y'all let me know what y'all think. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.